Dear students, I am Dr. C.R. Vijay, working as an associate professor in the Department of Botany at Maharani Science College, Mysore. Today, I am going to give you a talk on levels of biological diversity, biodiversity patterns, and global biodiversity hotspots. You are aware that these topics are included in your environmental studies syllabus, and let's study now these various subtitles one by one. Biodiversity. All of you are familiar with biological diversity or biodiversity. Biological diversity or biodiversity is the variety of species on this earth. On this earth, you will find a variety of species starting from viruses to the flowering plants. The different groups of organisms like viruses, bacteria, algae, fungi, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, angiosperms, and the entire animal kingdom is included in the biodiversity or biological diversity. Thomas Lovejoy in the year 1980 introduced the term biological diversity to the scientific community for all these varieties of organisms seen on this earth. Later on, Norsay and McManus first defined the biological diversity. In the year 1985, Walter G. Rosen condensed the name biological diversity into biodiversity. So as I said earlier, biodiversity is a variety of organisms present on this earth. Biodiversity can be studied at the three levels, and these three levels are the genetic level, the species level, and the ecosystem level. These three levels are actually intertwined. You cannot separate these three levels into separate entities. They are intertwined. Now, let's just take up this topic, genetic diversity. It is the variation of genes within a species. Example is a skin color, body shape, height, eye color, etc. in humans. I'll give a very simple example to describe or to explain what is this genetic diversity. You take the example of Homo sapiens, human beings. Human beings show variation in their color, in their body stature, height, eye color, etc. These variations in a single species, like Homo sapiens, to which human beings belongs, is because of the hereditary material. This is known as the genetic diversity. You can take another example, a dog. You will find different varieties of dog. All these are all genetic variations. I would like to give a few more examples from human beings. Human beings in the tribal area, even though they belong to the Homo sapiens group, their stature, their color, their hair, etc. differs. You take the example of Europeans. Their skin color is different. The Negro people, their skin color, their hair, etc. differs. So this is a very good example. These are the very good examples of genetic diversity. Next, we will take up the species diversity. the different species occurring on this land, on this earth. That is the species diversity. The species diversity, I'll give another example here. Pea plant is a species. Cajanus, that is your Tuardal, is another species. Or you take, for example, in the case of animal world, horse, donkey, dog, cat, a leopard, a lion, a tiger. These are all different species. So here you will find a variety of species here. Okay, so species diversity is the variety of organism in a defined geographical area. In a defined geographical area, you will find a variety of organisms, a variety of fungi medicine, variety of algae medicine, a variety of arthropods. The insects belongs to arthropods. Can be seen. So these are all the different type of organisms in the species diversity. Then ecosystem diversity. It deals with the difference between ecosystem types. Ecosystem is it's an area where the living and non-living organisms constantly interact. It may be a small pond, it may be a desert, it may be a forest. So here you will find both living and non-living organisms, and they constantly interact, and they will bring about structural and functional changes. Okay? And now you will find on this earth a different type of ecosystems. A grassland is ecosystem where you will find grasses are the predominant plants. In a pond or a lake, you will find different types of hydrophytes, the plants which are adapted to living in water, hydrophytes. Then in a desert ecosystem, you will find its own kind of vegetation and its own kind of animals. In a desert, you will find thorny bushes, you will find some cacti, etc. This is a desert ecosystem. In a forest ecosystem, it may be a rainforest or it may be a dry deciduous forest. In such a forest, you will find its own variety of organisms, okay, variety of plants as well as animals. So, ecosystem, different ecosystems are present on this earth, and they also differs from one another. And this difference is based on various factors. Mainly, it is the precipitation, that is the rainfall, and rainfall is one of the factors which determines these different types of ecosystems. So that's about the three levels of ecosystem. Hope this is very clear to you. The three levels of ecosystem, the three levels of biodiversity are the genetic diversity, the variation, the hereditary characters. Then the second one is the species diversity. Different types of species are present on this earth. And third one is the ecosystem diversity. Different types of ecosystems present on this earth. Now we will take up the next one, biodiversity patterns. The different organisms found on this earth is not uniformly or evenly distributed on this earth. They are not evenly distributed on this earth. You will find more biodiversity or more number of species in the tropical region where the climate is stable and the tropical region gets a lot of rainfall, and thus you will find the diversity, the biological diversity is rich in this area. As you go to the or as you go beyond this tropical region, I'll give you a diagram here. This is the globe, and this is the equator. This is 23.5 to the north. This is 23.5 to the south. Okay, this is equator. This is Tropic of Cancer, and this is Tropic of Cancer, and this is Tropic of Capricorn. So this area is known as the tropical zone, and as I said, this gets a luxuriant heavy rainfall, and thus the luxuriant forest is seen in this area, and thus in the forest you will find a variety of animals. Next is the temperate zone, the northern temperate zone and the southern temperate zone, and this in the temperate zone. In the temperate zone, you will find lesser amount of biodiversity. So biodiversity is not explain this one. Favorable environmental condition favors speciation and make it possible for a large number of species to exist there. That is, biodiversity is more in such areas than the others. Two broad kinds of biodiversity patterns are the latitudinal gradient and the longitudinal gradient. First, we will take up this latitudinal gradient. According to this pattern, the species diversity decreases as you move from equator to the polar region. In the equator, you will get the tropical climate, and thus the biodiversity is rich. As you move further move further to the south, towards the north temperate or southern temperate region, the diversity decreases, and as you go to the two poles, the diversity further decreases. So this is known as altitudinal gradient. The biodiversity distribution pattern is different in different parts of the world. It is more in the tropical region compared to less in the temperate region, and still less in the polar region. So the plant and animal diversity observed to be the maximum at the equator, and it decreases as we move towards the poles. Now, for example, here I will give an example here. Colombia, this is a country in the northern side of South American continent, and it is located in the equator region. In Colombia, 1,400 species of birds are present. India is also in the tropic region. India has 1,200 species of birds. Whereas if you go towards the temperate region like the New York, where you will find 105 species of birds, and if you still move upwards towards the Arctic, in an island like Greenland, only 56 species of birds are seen. So in the tropical region, for example, the species of birds are more. As you go higher up, it decreases, and still higher up, it further decreases. So this is because the tropical areas have more stable climate compared to that of the temperate and polar regions. In the polar region, the climate changes frequently, and thus you will find less diversity. It should be understood clearly that latitude per se does not drive biodiversity gradient, but several abiotic and biotic factors and the intensity of interactions that might influence biological diversity. So what is important is in simple terms. I'll explain this one. Latitude alone will not determine the pattern of distribution. For example, in the case of a desert ecosystem, in the case of a desert which is located in the tropical region, you will find only few varieties of organisms. The species diversity is very less. Even though it is located in the tropical region, the species diversity is very less in the desert. That's because it gets a very less rainfall. So, what is important is the latitude alone is not important. Along with latitude, the precipitation is also very important factor. Likewise, if you in the tropical region, if you go up in a mountainous area, as you go towards the tip of the mountain, the vegetation is less, the animal population, the fauna is also less. Even though this place is present in the tropical region, the organisms tend to decrease as you go higher. Okay, so latitude alone will not determine the pattern of distribution of organism. You must bear in mind. Okay. Then next, altitudinal gradient, the height. I'll give an example here. In a mountainous region, for example, take the example of Himalaya mountains. Himalaya mountain ranges and the foothills of the Himalayan mountain ranges, you will find sub-mountain climate. You will find many evergreen trees, and as you go higher up, that's beyond 1,500 meters in the Western Himalayas. Beyond 1,500 meters, the climate changes, and you will find a change in the vegetation. You will find a lot of coniferous plants. From 1,500 to 3,500 feet, you will find a temperate climate, and if you go beyond 3,500, then you will get an alpine climate, a climate which you see in the polar regions. Okay, so what is important is the altitudinal gradient, when the species diversity tend to decrease with increase in altitude. More number of species present in the base or the foothill, and gradually the number of species decreases as you go higher up. This may probably because the hill or the mountain ranges, as you go higher up, the space is less, and the number of species will be less there. Further, more amount of food is available at the base, and more amount of organisms, animals as well as plants are present in the foothills, and as you go higher up, area becomes narrower, and organisms become, the number of organisms also decreases, and as you go further higher up, the peak will be, the peak is the space is very less, and you will find because of the height, only the peak will be covered with snow and no organisms. Okay, so this is the altitudinal gradient. I explain all these things. Then the trend may be due to the result of species area relationship. I explain this one. Since available land area generally decreases with the increasing altitude, as you go higher up, the available land area decreases, and the number of species closely related to the area. Energy flux and temperature correlate inversely with elevation and may also account for the observed decline in diversity with increasing altitude. Then there are some other factors. I have explained this one. This is the rainfall gradient. Biodiversity is higher in regions of greater rainfall and lower in drier areas. I have given the example of a desert. Even though the desert is like the Sahara Desert is present in the tropical region, the biodiversity is less because it receives less precipitation. So rainfall is another important factor that determines the pattern of the distribution of organisms. Biodiversity is higher in regions of greater rainfall and lower in drier areas. Therefore, the richest biodiversity areas are the tropical moist forests. These forests cover only about 7% of the world's area, but contains more than 90% of all known species. See, the tropical rainforest present in the tropical regions of the America, the Southern America, especially the Amazon forest, or in the African continent, the Congo forest, or if you come to the Western Ghat, the Western Ghat forest, there you will find a lot of rainfall and a lot of biodiversity, both the plant biodiversity and the animal biodiversity. So, rainfall gradient is also a very important factor in determining the pattern of distribution of plants as well as animals. The next aspect is global biodiversity hotspots. All of you are familiar with the term hotspots. Hotspot is a place, a biologically rich area or a place is described as hotspot only when that area has a minimum of 1,500 endemic plants. Endemic plants are the ones which are found in a particular location in the world and nowhere else. Nowhere else. The Western Ghats has more than 1,500 endemic plants. You will not find these plants elsewhere. Thus, Western Ghats is considered as an endemic hotspot. Further, a place is to be considered as hotspot only when 70% of its natural vegetation is destroyed by various anthropogenic activities. If an area is under constant threat and if 70% or more area is destroyed, then that area falls into hotspots. So what is important is an area is considered as an hotspot only when it should be rich with the biological diversity. Second point is it should have a minimum of 1,500 flowering plants endemic to that area. These plants should not be present elsewhere, anywhere in the world, only to this restricted area. Second point. And the third point is the area should be under constant threat, at least a minimum of 70% of its habitat is destroyed by humans. So such an area is considered as a biodiversity hotspot. There are, according to the recent available data, there are 35 biodiversity hotspots in the world. I'll come to these biodiversity hotspots later on. We'll go through these aspects. I've explained all these things. There are 35 biodiversity hotspots in the world. Over 50% of the world plant species and 42% of all terrestrial vertebrate species are endemic to the 35 biodiversity hotspots. These biodiversity hotspots, these 35 biodiversity hotspots are listed in this table. In Africa, you will find 8 biodiversity hotspots. In Europe and Central Asia, 4 biodiversity hotspots. Asia Pacific, 14 biodiversity hotspots. North and Central America, 4 biodiversity hotspots. Then South America, 5 biodiversity hotspots, are altogether 35. And in India, you will find 4 biodiversity hotspots. In many of the books, you will find only 2, but according to the recent data, 4 biodiversity hotspots have been identified. And these 4 biodiversity hotspots are the Himalayas. Of course, Himalayas is present in India, Nepal, Bhutan, and parts of China, Burma, etc. But let's consider Himalaya present in India. So Himalaya is one of the biodiversity hotspots of India. Then Indo-Burma. In Indo-Burma, you will find the northeastern states. The northeastern state is biologically very rich with diversity, rich with endemic plants and animals, and thus the northeast. The third hotspot in India is the Nicobar Islands. This is a part of the Sundaland. The Sundaland comprises the Nicobar Islands, then the Indonesia, Malaysia, etc. These are the group of islands there. So this is Sundaland. Then the last one is the Western Ghats. The Western Ghats is located on the western part of India, in the states of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala. So these are the four important hotspots of India. So what is important is there are 35 hotspots in the world. An area is considered as an hotspot only when it should have a minimum of 1,500 endemic plants. Further, it should be under constant threat of habitat destruction because of various human activities, and it should have lost 70% of its habitat. So such an area is considered as an hotspot. Now, these are the biodiversity hotspots in India. I have explained these things. Himalaya, it includes entire Indian Himalayan region. Then the Indo-Burma region includes entire Northeast India except Assam and Andaman. Then the Sunda Islands includes the Nicobar group of islands and Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei, Philippines, etc. Then the Western Ghats and Sri Lanka. These are, of course, Sri Lanka is a different country. So these are the four different biodiversity hotspots of India. And now in this map you can see the 35 biodiversity hotspots. See here the Cape Forestry Kingdom, very rich with biodiversity, and this is the Western Ghats, then Sri Lanka, this is the Himalayas, and this is Northeast, and you can see the Sunda land, wherein the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, plus the Sunda land. So four biodiversity hotspots, and you will find 3 or 4 biodiversity hotspots in Australia, then biodiversity hotspots in Japan, Philippines, then Polynesia, including Hawaiian Islands. So many areas are considered as biologically rich, and they are considered as hotspots. So many places in the Central America, the western part of America, California. Here you will find the California Foresting Province. So these are all the different types of. These are all the 35 different biodiversity hotspots of the world. Hope this is very clear to you. With this, we will end this talk. Thank you.